So this is a RUMERTIME teaching video. What does RUMERTIME look like in real time? And we have a volunteer individual who is volunteering to tell a story and have us rumorize her. So that's what we're doing. This is a teaching video, teaching individuals how to use the RUMERTIME process in everyday life with everyday type people. All right. I am Dr. Yvonne Murray Laria. If everybody could introduce themselves.
I'm Laverne Shaw Bailey, and I live in Fargo, North Dakota, and I am the mother of one child who is 11, almost 12.
Okay.
I am Kleesha Hyacinth Purcell Charles, and I live in Grenada, Caribbean.
Wonderful. And so today, Laverne Shaw Bailey is going to tell us a story. And Kleesha Hyacinth Purcell, who is a therapist in Grenada, is going to, along with me, rumorize.
I've been using RUMERTIME for about 2 years now, and I find myself using it in multiple situations. Sometimes it'll be 2-3 times a day, and then it'll go for days on end and I don't do anything consciously using the RUMERTIME process, and then I'll use it again. And so it goes up and down. With my child, it's usually myself who's initiating with her. She rarely initiates the RUMERTIME process herself, but when I initiate it with her, she's willing to engage and participate. So I'm just going to share one of the stories recently that occurred, which is a kind of typical example of the situations where I stop, take a breath, and use the RUMERTIME process. At the front door, there's a bird's nest, and birds have been pooping all over the front porch. And so I asked her to clean up the poop. And when she cleaned it up, she cleaned it off the step, but she didn't clean off whatever was sprayed up on the side. And so my initial reaction without using RUMERTIME is to just start in with, I asked you to clean the step. Does this look clean to you? And that's exactly the way I acted, and that was my attitude. Who thinks that this is clean? This doesn't make any sense to me. And her response is to say, well, that's how I cleaned it. At least I cleaned it. And so then we get into a big argument, and she just walks away. That's how it normally goes if I don't engage. So a couple weeks later, I asked her to clean the steps again. And she did a really good job of cleaning the steps this time. But she did not clean the walls once again. So I went to her to inspect it, and she was there. And I started in again, not using the RUMERTIME process, not recognizing what happened from before. And I was like, the walls are not clean. She turned around from me at the door and under her breath said, nothing I do is ever good enough for you. You didn't even recognize that I did a better job of cleaning the steps. So then I said, with attitude at the beginning, if you want to say something to my face. So then she turned around, and I recognized that the way that I said it was unproductive. So I said, Simone, if you want to talk to me about what's happening with how I'm treating you, can you just say it to my face? And she said, okay. And that's when she said, it's just so difficult to do anything for you because you always start from a place of what I'm doing wrong, and you never start from what I did right. And I said, I could see how you could think that. And she said, what I would really like, I asked her, I said, well, how would you prefer that this situation go down? And she said, well, I would love it if you would just say, Simone, you did a really good job cleaning off the steps this time, but you did forget to clean the sides. And I said, okay, that sounds fair to me. I'll try to do that in the future. And then the next day, we were in the car going somewhere, and I asked her, which I perceived to be the reflection part of rumor time, what did she think was the difference in the way she felt when she was able to say what she said to my face versus when she was saying what she said, walking away from me and talking under her breath. And she said there was a difference and that it felt better to face me and say what she had to say versus walking away and saying it under her breath. So that's the story and that's the background. And this is the kind of altercations that we have on a regular basis when I don't engage. I just fly off the handle, and then I recognize after the fact, and I'm able to calm myself down, but not before I've flown off the handle. Although I will say I'm getting better at engaging from the beginning now than 2 years ago.
Okay. Dr. Larry, would you like to share first?
Okay, so thank you, Laverne, for sharing that story. It is it's good to see the different interactions, you know, the healthy or the balanced interpersonal and the balanced intrapersonal, as well as the imbalance, and also the unconscious living to moving to the conscious living. So in this story we have, in Laverne's story, we have intra and interpersonal imbalance and intra and intrapersonal balance. We have unconscious living and we have conscious living. Let's talk about the first plot in the rumerization process, which is recognizing. Kleesha, where do you see Laverne recognized her thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions?
Well, I think that once you were able to, I think your daughter is definitely has the ability to recognize, because she seems to recognize and understand where her thoughts and feelings are, because she's able to express that. Mm-hmm. And I think that once she's able to tell you exactly what she's feeling and what she's thinking, you kind of take a deep breath at that point and really realize that, you know what, she has a point. So at that point in time, I recognize that you recognize that this is where you probably have to shift. Mm-hmm. That's what I see. Mm-hmm. And I also noticed from what you shared that you said this is not clean. And you started to give your feedback of what clean looks like and how she should look and how she should be and how things should be. And so there again, I see you focusing a lot on your mindsets mm-hmm. and what you think clean is mm-hmm. and not really giving her a chance to express why she did what she did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think that probably a good place for you to start is to actually, before responding, being able to stop and take a deep breath and really compose yourself, right? And I think that once you're able to do that, you're able to go back and recognize exactly the direction that you need to be in, and to recognize the positive in what she did and not the negative in what she did.
Right.
If there's
So,
negative at all.
right. And so what we're saying is that Laverne can recognize that she needs to pause, that Laverne needs to pause. If you know that, or most of your interactions are filled with high energy, high energy, you want to initially, before anything is said, before you even go into the giving directives, recognize what you're thinking, right? Recognize what you're thinking. And as Kleesha said, your mindset. So recognize the thoughts, because we know that thoughts make up mindsets, right? Recognizing what you're thinking. What were you thinking, Laverne? Could you tell us what you were thinking in the first part of the story where you gave her the directions?
The first time.
Yes, the first time.
I mean, it's hard for me to remember what I was thinking back then, but if I go by my regular mindset thinking, it would be, I know I'm going to roll up on this porch and it's not going to be what I want it to be. I asked her to do this. It's going to be crazy. It's not going to be clean. And then I'm going to have to say something about it. And then I roll up there and it's exactly the way that I thought it was going to be. So that just justifies me in flying off the handle.
Right.
So I hear that, what is the, now that you have the thought, so you had an emotion going home, and then you had an emotion when you interacted. So your thoughts and your emotion definitely led to the way that you interacted with her.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what would, if you were to label or name, let's say name the interaction that you had in the first scenario, what would be some of the language that you would use to name the interaction?
Well, I would say the feeling, are you asking me for a feeling, or you need a name? The feeling I had going up to the porch was impatience, right?
Impatience.
It was impatience for her not meeting my standards. Here we're going to go again with another example of her not meeting my standards.
Right. And so how did that then make you interact? How did that make you behave? What were your actions, your physical?
I raised my voice.
Okay.
My body language was closed.
What was your facial expression like?
My facial expression was cold, just like. So everything about the interaction was, you disappoint me.
Right. That was the message. That's the energy that was being given off. Then let's talk about recognizing what her interaction was.
And not only that, how did you respond when you heard her reaction?
Right.
When you noticed that her mindset and the way that she was thinking was different from yours, how did you feel?
In the first interaction or the second one?
The first and second.
In the first one, I just expect her to, defend herself. Well, I did the best I could. In the second one, after I calmed down and asked her to face me and tell me what she's thinking. Even though it was hard for her to hear her tell me what she said, I prefer that feeling of, I don't want to call it confrontation, but honesty. I felt better that she was honest with me in the second scenario than in the first scenario where she's just defending herself.
And so go ahead, Kleesha.
Now, I was saying, what do you think shifted? What made that interaction different the second time? What was that key element that changed everything?
Well, when she said what she said under her breath, I knew that what she was saying under her breath was true, right? That I pay more attention to how she disappoints me than to how she, meets my expectations. And so that kind of softened me to give her the opportunity to just turn around and face me and say it and have her see me receive it. So I think just hearing her honesty in that moment when she was turned away from me filled me with sadness, a little bit of sadness. And so I wanted to give her the opportunity to face me and see that I can take it, that I can hear her truthfulness without flying off the handle.
Right.
I don't know, does that answer your question, Kleesha?
Yeah, it does. It does.
And so I want to go to another part, go back to, so you were able to recognize your physical interactions, right? You had attitude, you were impatient, and it showed up in your closed, you started off closed, your face was like, your disappointment, all of those things. And so those were you recognizing your physical response, right? The physical visible response. And so you also have to know that she recognized it too, which is why then she responded with a like, or a protective, I should say, a protective physical visible interaction. What was that?
Well, in the first one, I think, she just was like, well, that's what I did. And then she just walked away.
So walking away,
yeah.
Right? So that was the first one. What's this in the second interaction?
So in the second one, she also turned around and walked away, and was mumbling under her breath.
Right, and that's really significant. That's a significant interaction. That's also an interaction, because the fact that she was mumbling under her breath can be interpreted as, or can be seen to be, I'm defeated. Right? That was the outgrowth of that interaction. But
defeated, yes. And another term is that she doesn't feel heard.
Right.
She doesn't feel heard.
Or that what she did was not valued and it didn't matter. Right. So those were all that's us in recognizing. What we're just doing here is just recognizing the time of both people, of self and others. We're recognizing the thoughts, the interactions, mindsets, and emotions of Laverne and of Simone.
But I want to add to that, Dr. Laria, that I feel that even at the point of recognizing, by the time we look at the second piece, there I see both Laverne and her daughter transitioning into actually
Yes.
understanding
Yes.
the situation,
Yes.
understanding each other.
Mm-hmm. And so
And that was,
let's
and I think that is what probably is leading to them being able to manage.
yeah.
So, yeah.
So we'll get there. We'll get there, right? And so we recognize that Simone also recognized the mindset which influenced the interactions, right? Because she said to you, you only see when I do what? You only comment when what did she say, Laverne?
You only talk about the things that I do that don't meet your standard, but you
Right.
don't say the things, you don't address the things that do meet your standards.
Mm-hmm. And so her mindset, how she sees you, how she sees your interaction, and how she sees herself in this interaction is what? What would we say that is?
I mean, I think she approaches me from a place of whatever I do, she's going to find a way to be disappointed in what I'm doing.
So she feels like she's what? A disappointment. Her mindset is that I'm a disappointment.
I'm not good enough for my mom.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we're recognizing thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions. And like Kleesha said, we haven't gotten to the understanding where we dig deeper to know where these thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions of Laverne comes from. And I know this, I see this is hard for you, right, Laverne?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us what you're thinking, what you
Feeling
believe,
right now.
feeling and believing. What mindset are you in right now?
Well, I know what it feels like to feel like you're a disappointment to your parents.
Mm.
And I was hoping to not pass that on.
Mm-hmm.
But I see in so many interactions that we have,
Mm-hmm.
we are often in a place where she thinks that she's a disappointment to me.
Mm-hmm. And this, ladies and gentlemen, our viewing audience, this is why it's important to live consciously. This is one of the key features of the RUMERTIME process, where we help individuals or support individuals to move from unconscious living to conscious living. Because if you live unconsciously, you're going to pass on behaviors, you're going to pass on mindsets, you're going to pass on emotions to the next generation unknowingly and inadvertently, knowing that you don't want to do this very thing that has happened to you. But if you're not living consciously, you're not going to be able to break the cycle. And so, Laverne, thank you for taking this emotional risk to share with the world this RUMERTIME process and how it works. It's hard work, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I can see why people don't want to do it. Because it doesn't happen overnight. And you take 2 steps forward and you think that you are at the end of the RUMERTIME process.
Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what it is. It's a process and it's ongoing.
Mm-hmm. It's ongoing because as air is to life, so are social emotional competencies to relationships. And you don't just, because life becomes hard, you stop breathing for a moment, and then it's like, okay, let me start back breathing, and about when this hard issue is over. You don't do that. You can't do that with life and breathing, and you certainly can't do it with relationships. We should try not to do it with relationships, but we all do, right? We take a break, we stop living consciously, we stop striving to live in a more balanced way interpersonally. And so I'm looking forward to when we get into understand and manage and express and reflect, because you hit on all of those. You touched on all of those.